Hey, welcome back. This is Shah. I got an update for you in the Tradcon versus Red Pill war that's been currently ongoing. Let's go ahead and start with the tweet from Sovereign Bra. If you guys ever watch whatever podcast, he's the guy, I think his name's Chase, and you've probably seen him on there a few times. He is a kind of like a Christian bro, and he usually goes on there and spreads Tradcon stuff. So let's go ahead and see what he said. Red Pill influencers. Women with high body counts are bad. Also, red pill influencers. Go get laid as much as possible, sleep around with a bunch of women, spin plates, and avoid marriage because it's a scam. It's degenerate, hypocritical, and heavily contributes to the brokenness of our world. Take the Christ pill instead. And then he quotes 1 Thessalonians 4, 3-8. This isn't unlike, what Matt Walsh has said or Ben Shapiro or any of those guys. And I made a video about Matt Walsh when he put out his tweets basically saying that the red pill is the same as feminism and it's, making the problem worse. And same thing with Ben Shapiro. And after that, he attached a video. Let's take a look at it.
I personally speak out against male promiscuity. I think one of the worst problems in our world is promiscuity in general. I don't support dudes like sleeping with a ton of women. A lot of guys are like, if a guy has a high body count, dudes will be like, dude, nice. I think it's degenerate.
Like it's still like a hot girl, go for it.
Yeah, I think it's degenerate, personally.
It's like contributing to the problem with
exactly.
women as well.
A lot of influencers that are like, yeah, women with high body counts are bad, but also you as a man should go get laid as much as humanly possible. It's like, bro, you're literally advocating for men to contribute to the problem that you're calling out.
On the one hand, yes, red pillars will say high body count is bad. And then on the other hand, they're going to advise men on how to attract and sleep with women, which does contribute to the problem in some way, but they're not the origin point for the problem. And I'd hate to say, nuh-uh, you started it. But really, the only reason you have the red pill is because society has seen feminism grow. Women have stepped outside of their traditional role. The Tradcons have been powerless to stop that from happening. And men in the real world, when it comes to dating and marriage, are dealing with women who are no longer doing what, Ephesians 5 tells them to do. The red pill, in my opinion, is more of a reactionary movement, which essentially says, hey, feminism has made women not marriageable because it's advising them to step outside of their traditional roles. And then you have red pill over here basically telling men to do the same. Red pill essentially says, well, if women are stepping outside of their traditional roles, then men, you should have no problem stepping outside of your traditional roles. And here's how to best navigate the dating landscape in a place where, lines have been blurred between roles on all sides. Now, I saw this tweet when it was like probably a half hour old, and I was like, I'm gonna type something just for the heck of it. But I couldn't resist, so here's what I said. Chase, I'd love to see you debate red pillars on the Whatever podcast. Instead of bringing on the OF girls, why don't you guys do an episode with red-pilled men instead? It's easy, like in the clip, whatever, to explain it to the OF chicks or whatever, because there's no one really on that table challenging him. Now he's specifically calling out red pillars, saying it's no better than feminism. And when I hear that, what I'd like to see is a debate with all these guys, A lot of times it's the guys and they're arguing with the feminists, and pointing out whatever the flaws in their logic and how feminism's bad and blah, blah, blah. You're going to end up with cats and boxed wine or whatever. It's been entertaining. It's been done to death. There are Tradcon men and there are red pill men that were both watching this stuff and enjoying it. And I think that's how it really got mainstream. What we've not really seen in this sphere is Tradcons going against red pillars and manosphere guys. We've seen some glitches of that happen. We've seen Officer Tatum ask Brian, the host of whatever, why he doesn't want to get married. And it's always this awkward conversation. I think we saw Michael Knowles do the same to him. We saw Lila Rose, who I'd classify as a Tradcon, get into a weird sort of conversation with Jay Waller about his, beliefs on marriage, which was very strange. But we haven't had like a full-on debate. So that's why I found it necessary to say that to him. Now, I wasn't the only one with something to say. This actually attracted responses from a lot of big content creators. So let's take a look at those. So here we have Rollo Tomasi. He's the guy who wrote The Rational Male, which I have on my desk here. And what's funny about this is that Chase's tweet specifically mentioned this phrase spinning plates, which you can say is kind of an early red pill term. And spinning plates, for those who don't know, it's basically a strategy for men to sleep with multiple women. So it's basically saying, listen, if you're going to have any kind of power in the dating dynamic, especially when dating feminists, well, you want to be dating more than one of them, because as soon as this one tries to disrespect you or come in with problems, you got 3 more plates spinning on this side over here, and you can just start giving them more attention. And this creates a different power dynamic. So Rollo's book here, Rational Male, has like 4 or 5 chapters or whatever on plate theory. And he probably thought that spinning plates was a direct call out to him. So here's what he had to say. What the F are you talking about? If you're going to make accusations about influencers or those red pill guys, unless you name names, you are a coward and no one should take you seriously. This guy Chase, Sovereign Bra, has essentially called out the red pill. And, you can't really do that, I guess, genuinely, unless you go head to head and actually talk to some of these guys about what you don't like about it and give them a chance to respond back too. So he wasn't the only one to respond. So here's Myron Gaines. He's the host of Fresh and Fit podcast, which is a very big and successful podcast where they platform the OF chicks and all that stuff. He says, Jesus can't save these hoes, and neither can you. You Tradcons need to realize feminism is here to stay and isn't going anywhere. Adapt to the new normal or keep getting married by the church and destroyed by the state. I mean, unless the Tradcons can put the feminism genie back in the bottle, they're not really going to be able to help men, because all they're really advising men to do is to continue to enable feminism by serving as a utility for women. If women are going to be feminists and, work, do the stuff, they don't want to be housewives, all this stuff, and you keep telling men to, hey, marry, invest your nest egg into a woman like that, it's only going to lead to disaster, and it's been leading to disaster, and that's why you have the red pill and manosphere content in the first place. It wouldn't have gotten so big or so mainstream if the Tradcon advice was working. On the other side, you got, Tradcons putting stuff like this, red pill is feminism for men. I don't really see how that is this like smoking gun argument. Of course, red pill is feminism for men. You know what I mean? There are a lot of similarities. You know what I mean? The feminists say, oh, there's the patriarchy that confuses everything. Break free from the patriarchy. The red pill says, the matrix, you gotta break free from the gynocentric matrix. But it's only obvious that after feminism took hold, there would be an equal and opposite reaction from the men. And so long as feminism told women to step outside of their traditional roles, now men are asking, what good is it to stay in their own traditional roles? And they're beginning to step out. She also says, the more I encounter toxic red pillars, the more I understand how feminism came about. Rollo was there and he responded with, anytime you're ready to back up your convictions and come to Vegas, I'll book the studio. Until then, you're just as much a coward as the churchy male feminists who will predictably defend you. And again, that's something I'd love to see as a viewer. I think the meta is changing. What made this mainstream were the, viral shorts and the podcasts where the feminists and the guys argue it out, whether they are Tradcon or red pill, and pointing out the flaws or whatever from the OF side or the delusional standards or whatever was all interesting and fun and entertaining, but it's been, kind of beaten to death. I think people want something new, you know what I mean? And I think this is perfect. This can be the new meta. Let's get the Tradcons arguing with the red pillars. I think that would only be beneficial because it would help to further this divide between the Tradcons and the red pillars. We can see what's different between them, and then once we fully understand that, we can see what maybe the next steps to take are. I'd also really love to see these debates, because sometimes you'll see Tradcons basically say that divorce being secular has caused a lot of these problems and that it should better remain in the domain of the church. But the thing about that is that divorce has historically never been in the domain of the church. Only annulments were, because the church does not allow for divorce, since it's not something that's allowed for, in the Bible and in Christianity. Therefore, the church has no experience on how to properly conduct a divorce or even do one. All they've ever really done throughout history is annulments, which is usually like saying a marriage was never supposed to happen, whether because they found out these two people were related or because they found out that this was done with no consent. And they had ecclesiastical courts where worshipers and believers could bring their case to, and they would hear that internally. I would say also that divorce has always been secular and is also a very American thing. If you've watched my video on the history of no-fault divorce, you'll see that in the revolutionary times in the United States, when the American revolutionaries actually fought and defeated the English, the first thing that they did was create some means or some avenue for divorce. They didn't like not being able to do that. They didn't like dealing with the English church presenting a problem. So as soon as America was born, divorce in the hands of the secular government became a thing. And back then, if you wanted to get divorced, you'd have to go to the state legislature. And all the way since then on, divorces have always been handled by the secular state and not by the church or any religious institution. And, we've seen the development of divorce law culminate into what it was, which was at-fault divorce, which did give protections to both men and women, and then change it to no-fault divorce after 1969. And that brought us to where we are here today. The Tradcons like Sovereign Bra, I think, have no real answer to this, and I would love to see this be debated. Another thing that I think is weird is that divorce has to remain under the umbrella of the secular, because you have more than one type of religious following here in the U.S. You don't have just Christians, but you got Jews, Muslims, hell, the Satanists. They need to figure out their divorces too. The occultists, there's Hindus, there's all kinds of people, the atheists. So having divorce laws that make sense being handled by the secular state is something we need. And I don't think the church can handle this for the entire United States. I just wish that the Tradcons would understand that if they helped us achieve this family law overhaul, it would ironically also help Christian marriages, because there'd be less incentive to divorce in the first place. So anyways, I'll keep following this and we'll see where it goes. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your comment down below. Maybe we'll get the debate we're all hoping for. I think as time goes on, we're going to see this divide between the Tradcons and Red Pillar Manosphere guys just deepen and widen and widen and widen. And as they argue more, it'll highlight the differences. I think the future will be stranger than fiction. Who knows? As the Tradcons continue to push the Red Pillars away from them, they might push them straight into the arm of the feminists, who will say, listen, we can get all this stuff figured out. Here's a platform. Here's some kind of changes to the law we'd suggest. And the Red Pillars might work with them. And it might just undo Tradcon life even more than it already has been undone in the last, 50, 60 years. Or the Tradcons might say, all right, listen, we hear you guys. Here's what we suggest. What I personally think should happen is that, and this would be like a dream scenario, so it probably won't happen, but I'd love to see all of the Manosphere creators telling men to abstain from the next election. Because if they do that, they're basically holding the conservatives hostage. Men typically vote conservative more than women, I think by about 10%. If even just 10% of men, or a little bit more, say we're not going to vote, it's guaranteed the conservatives will lose the election going forward, and it'll bring them down to their knees, and they'll have to say, okay, what do you guys want? Now, if the feminists and the left or the liberals are smart, the progressive liberals, what they'll say is, hold on a second, we have a platform for you guys also. And then, you know, guys would be able to choose between those two. That's probably very far in the future, but we'll see what happens. And I'll see you guys on the next one.